Nolan Richardson's Arkansas teams played 40 minutes of hell. What about Carolina? Could they play 40 minutes of second half?
This is Tyler Hansbrough, and you're listening to Locked On Tar Heels.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? It's Thursday, December 19th, 2024. Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Schade, joined by our good friend, Coach Bill Robinson, head coach of the Milligan University Buffaloes and a 2-decade veteran of Carolina Basketball School. Just published this year, this great book. We'll talk about it later, Carolina Basketball School. We're like less than a week away from Christmas. You got to get a copy right now. Thanks so much for making us your first listen or watch this Thursday. Special shout out to all you everydayers checking in with us, Locked On Tar Heels Discord members, and of course the Locked On Tar Heels insiders. Hey, the college football playoffs are here, and you don't want to miss a moment of the action. The college football playoff is presented by Allstate and begins with 4 first-round games December 20th and 21st on ESPN, ABC, TNT, and Max. Make sure you check those out. Coming up on the show today, if you are Coach Hubert Davis and the staff, do you stay the course you're on, or do you have to keep tweaking to get some things figured out? We want to try to look at Carolina's schedule and how much of a role and factor that plays. Would we be in a different spot if Carolina was playing an easier schedule? But first, we've talked so much about what's not working for Carolina that let's look at it from a different angle today, Coach, as we start diving in here. What is working? I want to get back to what's not working, sure. But rather than find another way to say, how do we fix the first half? I want to say Carolina has clearly found something in the second half of a bunch of basketball games this season. Kansas, Michigan State, Florida on Tuesday night. How can they get to playing with that level of urgency all the time?
Yeah, I think that's the big question. I think that's what Coach Davis and the staff's trying to figure out. The defensive intensity is what's been there second half that has not been there first half. There's no better play really than Seth fighting two guys for a ball, loose ball, getting it, getting a layup, getting fouled. I mean, that just shows, that urgency, that defensive intensity that they're lacking first half. So that's more of the plays we've got to see first half, in my opinion.
How does that happen? Or why is it not currently? I just like... Is it a lack of readiness? Is it a lack of understanding of the urgency of what's at play? What goes into that?
I think it's a motivational thing. And again, as a coach, you're constantly trying to find out what motivates guys. Is it a pregame routine? Is it the music? Is it a dance in the locker room? Is it, what is it about that pregame routine that really gets them motivated? Is it a speech? Usually those speeches are not gonna. You can have 1 or 2 of those a year. You can't do that every game. So you've got to be able to find something internally to get you going. My college coach, Bill Harris, used to say, his job was not to find a way to motivate 18 to 22-year-olds. That was our job. We had to figure that out. And I think that is true. I think part of it is you've got to find something inside of yourself that says, hey, this is on us as a team. Where's the leadership? Somebody's got to step up and say, hey, we're just not going to do this anymore. Something's got to change.
Yeah. It's interesting because, the backs against the wall mentality, if it were, it's happening in the second half, but at some point you have to realize that your back is against the wall, like at a season level, at a long-term level, right? And if that urgency wasn't there at the beginning of the Florida game, I don't know how they're ever going to find it, right? Like if you don't realize oh, we're like toast eventually, if we can't do it now, I don't see how they're going to eventually find it, Coach. So surely now heading into UCLA in New York on Saturday, Carolina, it's not just like second half our backs are against the wall. It's like season long, our backs are squarely against the wall.
Yeah, just listen to Hubert's post-game interview. He said our backs against the wall all the time. It's not just when we get down in the first half. Being a blue blood, you're marked. Everybody's got your games circled on their schedule. So you've got to be able to play as if your back's against the wall all the time. I hope they don't need a whole lot of motivation going into the UCLA game, playing in New York, on that court, the greatest arena, I think in the country at least. It has to come now. The urgency has to be there now. Now there is great hope. There's an opportunity, obviously, when you see the hope that they're playing good in stretches and really bad in stretches. I mean, really, really good and really, really low. The consistency is what they have to find. And how do you find that? You got to continue to. I think you got to continue to tweak the roster and the lineups and the minutes, and you got to be able to trust some people. And when you're playing freshmen and playing guys who maybe haven't played a whole lot, you've got to go through some of those low periods to be able to get that experience. And that's a hard thing to do. But it's about trust. And who does he trust? And trust changes from game to game. And you talk about, having to have some kind of consistency on the floor all the time. You can't just pull somebody out for having one bad play. And you've got to be able to trust people. And I think that's where his trust is deeper than it's ever been. And we've got to continue to find ways to motivate those guys on the floor.
So, you talked about the defensive urgency and how that really, especially in the Florida game, and I guess we would say the Kansas game too, really is what jump-started Carolina getting back into those games. Outside of that, Coach, when we see that good version that you were just talking about, when the highs are high, are there other things outside of defensive intensity that you're seeing that are different, or is it simply just sometimes the shots are falling, sometimes they're not, and the classic phrase, everything looks better when the ball goes through the basket? Is it as simple as that, or are there other things at play as well?
I think it's as simple right now as making sure you're taking care of your business, making sure that you're guarding your guy. I know some of the issues last night seemed to be first half, some mistakes when the switching's happening. The communication's got to be better. If you're going to switch, and they're going to have to switch based on the size that they have, the communication's got to be better. And it's got to be threefold. You've got to be able to communicate, obviously, verbally. You got to be able to communicate visually, where you're pointing and communicating, because it's loud in those places. Sometimes you got to communicate physically. You're grabbing a teammate, pulling them through, or pushing them. You've got to be able to use all three of those methods of communication. I don't see that right now. I don't see that early, at least. I don't see that. Maybe later in the game you see a little bit more of it, but it's having guys locked in and staying in the moment. I did a little bit of acting, in high school, because we're a really small school. I know it's kind of weird to think about that, but you got to stay in your role. You just got to stay in your role. And sometimes these guys, I think sometimes after a bucket or something, you can almost see them thinking about what just happened and processing, I missed that play, or I just made a nice play, instead of just saying, what's next? And what's that next play? Bobby Taylor, and you don't remember Bobby Taylor, but Bobby played at Longview High School when I was in Texas, went on to play for Notre Dame, and played for the Eagles for a little while. But in high school, I got to see him as a high school senior play, and I saw him make a steal, get a dunk, and when he dunked it, he literally landed in defensive stance at the head of the press, ready for what the next play was. He wasn't celebrating or doing all these crazy things. He was right into what's the next thing, staying in that role, in that moment, and I think that's what I want to see more of. I want to see that intensity of, once that transition from offense to defense, or play, making a play or not making a play, to forgetting about what just happened and just focusing on what's next.
Yeah, there was a play on Tuesday night. I specifically remember Elliot Cadeau had a really tough layup that he finished. It was very impressive, but then was kind of feeling himself and getting it, and at the bench, and Florida's already halfway back down the court. And it's like, bro, you're the point guard. You've got to be locked back in immediately and initially. So, Coach, one last question before we move on. A quote from RJ Davis, a quote from Hubert Davis after the game on Tuesday night, and I want to see your thoughts on if you think this is possible. RJ says, if we played the way we played the second half and apply that for 40 minutes, I think there will be a different outcome. And I know he meant that about that game, but I interpret that to mean season long as well. Coach Hubert Davis says, quote, that's how you have to play. That's how you have to prepare. You always have to be that way. And once this team gets there, then it's going to be fun to watch, end quote. So those two things said, Coach, Hubert Davis says, once this team gets there, my question to you, will they get there?
I hate the word process. I think the Sixers ruined that. We've talked about that before, but it is part of the ongoing plan. and you got to continue to do what you do. And Hubert talked about the discipline, about doing the right things and doing it the right way all the time. They're going to continue to do things the right way in practice. They're going to continue to do the right things in their workouts, in their development, in their weight room training, in their diet, everything. They're still going to do everything the right way. At some point, it's going to click. I still think they have too much talent not to be good. They're still 1-0 in conference. Let's talk about hope. I mean, let's forget about and we'll talk about scheduling coming up, but they're 1-0 in conference, and that's my message. Okay, we played some really tough teams, but we're still 1-0 in conference. We still got a lot of basketball in front of us. Let's just focus on one possession at a time, not one game at a time. Let's one defensive possession, one offensive possession. Just take care of our business, and we're going to continue to get better.
All right, that's it. Don't let it be any bigger than this moment right now. Stay locked in. So if the possibilities are there, do you stay the course and trust that things are going to work themselves out? Or do you keep tweaking? Or maybe trick question, and it's a little bit of both. We'll try to unpack that question here in just a second. Right after I remind you that it's that time of year, the college football playoff is back. And with the newly expanded 12-team format, it's guaranteed to be bigger and better than ever, bringing you all the hard-hitting and high-flying excitement that you love. TNT Sports coverage of the college football playoff begins December 21st. That's this Saturday, starting with college football playoff kickoff show at 11 a.m. Eastern. It's presented by AT&T. That leads into our first matchup, Southern Methodist University Mustangs, that's SMU, up battling the Penn State Nittany Lions at noon. Following that, the Clemson Tigers look to upset the Texas Longhorns in a showdown at 4 p.m. Eastern. Don't miss a moment of the action. Watch the college football playoff presented by Allstate live on TNT, True TV, TBS, and Max. Coach Rob, we've come to this moment now, and I guess truthfully we hit it a little while ago, but it's becoming more of a thing than it was just a couple of weeks ago. This idea that Carolina seems to be continuing to have the same struggles, same issues over and over. I think that's revealed to me in the fact that I feel like we keep having the same conversations over and over on the show, trying to figure those things out. And so the question is, should Carolina, should Coach Davis and the staff, should the players stay the course that they're on in the hopes and the trust that we've got a good thing and we've got enough talent and it's going to eventually work out? Or are there big major tweaks, whether it's personnel or scheme or whatever, that still needs to happen to get Carolina in the right spot? Let me compare it to something in football, and then I want to hear your answer. It's almost like if you're a team that's got a strong, like, power running game, like Omarion Hampton, sometimes you've got these runs early in the game and they're only going for 1 or 2 yards, and fans get frustrated because you're not breaking these runs, but eventually you wear down the defense, or then you can pop it outside, or then you go play action and hit a big pass over the top. And so there's a lot of patience required to let the Novocaine work. So, Coach, my question again, should Carolina stay the course, or do they need to keep tweaking?
Yeah, I don't think there's major changes to be made, but I think you're constantly tweaking. And there may be some things that they put in that are a little different here and there. I know one Division I coach that they run a different series of sets every game. They never run the same stuff. And I don't think that's what we're talking about. I don't think we need to go that extreme. But there are some things, and I think some of it's personnel-wise. I think you're still trying to figure out exactly what the best lineup is, who plays well together. Maybe there's some offense-defense stuff to do late. There's guys who, I love Drake Powell. I do. And there's times when we just need, I think, just play him. He just needs to be on the floor. I think Ian's got to play more. But he's also got to defend more. Everybody loves to see him score, but he also needs to be able to sit down and be held accountable for his defensive stuff too. So there are times when you have to tweak things a little. There are times you have to think some big scheme things too. I don't think we're at the let's just change everything drastically right now. I think we still got to stay the course with what your basic fundamentals are and what your basic philosophies are, but constantly tweak roster stuff.
As a coach, how do you know when those right times are? For example, like, it feels like you're in these moments where it feels like you're just right there, man. So close in the Kansas game, so close in the Michigan State game, so close against Florida. but it's like the same things keep happening. And for you as a coach or Coach Davis, how do you trust, like, I know that's not the result we want, but going back to what you said about process, like the process is right and we're going to get the results we want. We just got to keep letting it go. How do you know when that inflection point comes, when it's like, okay, I think the process is right, but we're not getting what we need. And so now we've got to make major shifts and adjustments.
And what are we failing in? Okay, let's see what we're failing. Let's fix that. So we're failing at late game situations. So let's work on late game situations more. I would love to see in practice, maybe today or tomorrow, for them to put the exact same situation. It was 2 minutes, 39 seconds, up one or down one, whatever it was, and play out that last 2.5 minutes and see what we would have done differently. Let's put 0-0 score and 20 minutes on the clock, and let's play a 3-minute game to start and see who wins that game and run. Have some kind of punishment. Get on the treadmill or on the bike or whatever the punishment is for losing a 3-minute game to start the game. Because right now that's what we're struggling with. So let's come up with some punishment, some urgency, make this game, be a little bit different, even if it's just a 4-minute, that first, media timeout. Let's win that first 4 minutes. And I think that's more of what my pregame talk would be, and maybe even some practice scenarios where you're sitting there saying, okay, these are the places we're really struggling. Let's work on this specifically today, what we're not doing well.
Coach, you know what's funny? What I love about that idea, like you were just talking about your drama background. For folks may or may not know, I have a music background, right? And so for me, when you're practicing music, if you have a trouble spot, you don't just say, oh, let me go back and play the whole song again. You hone in specifically on like that measure of the music or those two measures or those couple notes, and you work it until you can't get it wrong. You just keep practicing that specific trouble section. And that's like that. What you just said is the basketball version of that. Where is, we don't play the whole game. We hone in on where is our issue. Let's hone in specifically on our issue and then put that better version of it into the whole game scenario. So that, what you just said there makes a lot of sense to me, and I hope it does for other people as well. Coach, you talked about Ian. I feel like I'm here. The calls for him to be inserted into the starting lineup are growing louder and louder and louder, to the point where I think we need to address that. Is that a tweak that would be worth, as you think about these tweaks, one that's worth considering? Because my problem is, like, when I say, sure, but as you've often said, Coach, that means somebody else has to come out. And when I ask that question, I kind of struggle to figure out who that would be. I feel like the majority of the loud voices in my ear on social media are saying, start him and bench Elliot. I just do not see that, Coach. Where are you at?
Yeah, first of all, I got the music award and the PE award my senior year in high school. I want to make sure I both of those. So I don't think Elliot's coming off the floor. He's too good of a leader. And I know he's turned the ball over a bunch, and sometimes in crucial situations, he's still your on the court leader. He's your coach on the floor. You can't take him off the floor. I would be more leaning to it, and this is kind of nuts, but let's put 4 guards on the floor. Put 4. I mean, I know we're small enough as it is right now. Let's switch everything. Put Lubin at the 5 and play the other 4 guards together and just go crazy. This is the time for me. If you're going to make a tweak, let's go full court. Let's take those 4 guys and put Lubin at the back of the press and just let everybody else fly around, at least to start the game. I'm not saying that this is something you do for 40 minutes, like your reference to Arkansas, and that's not it. But I think if you're looking for something different to start the game, why not do something drastic and really up the tempo? And let's be honest, UCLA doesn't want to play that way.
No.
Mick Cronin's not going to be, wanting to play up and down. So you may get to the point you can trap a couple times and fly around the gym. He's still not going to, take it 1-on-2 at the other end. They're going to pull it out. They're going to run their stuff. And I think it's a perfect time to try something like that.
Yeah. And so in that scenario, you would say have Drake come off the bench and let Ian start alongside Elliot, RJ, and Seth. Is that your suggestion there?
Exactly. Do something and some people might say that's radically different. I don't think it's radically different. It's not like you're changing 5 for 5. You're making one little tweak and just let's go tempo wise and see how that. And again, you're to the point right now. It's still not conference. You got some time to work on some things. let's roll the dice a little bit and see how that goes. It doesn't have to be a 40-minute decision. It can be a 4-minute segment, and see how it works. If it works, great, awesome. If it doesn't, we're still in the exact same spot we've been, with slow starts. So what's there? It's not really a gamble. It's just trying something different.
I love it. And what the good thing to me is I had put in this quote Seth Trimble, because clearly the guys, excuse me, coach, understand that all hope is not lost. This is from Seth Trimble postgame. We're too far into the season to just continue to show flashes of how good we can be, but we've shown it. And here's the critical part to me. So that belief is still there, and that faith and trust and love for each other, so that will never go away. These guys realize we are not done. Sure, we might be out of the conversation for a 1 seed or a 2 seed, maybe even a 3, but there's still a lot of possibility ahead, but we got to keep working and keep playing with and for each other. And that's encouraging to me, because that says that the locker room has not been lost.
Yeah, this is why you coach from a love perspective, not a fear perspective. Because when things go bad and you still have love, you can you still build everything together, everybody together. Coaches that coach with fear, when things go bad, everybody separates. Nobody wants to be near each other. Nobody wants to be around. And it's really hard to keep the locker room tight. I guarantee you those guys still love being at Carolina. They still love Coach Davis. They still love their teammates. And they're willing to do whatever it can to get through whatever phase that they're in right now. So there's still a lot of hope. I don't feel there's no desperation. And I think from the coaching staff, urgency, yeah, but it's not like all is doom and gloom and let's talk about recruiting in next year, because that's not where they're at right now.
Well, one critical factor in this whole discussion is Carolina's absolute gauntlet of a schedule so far. One of the questions we want to ask, would an easier path have been beneficial for Carolina in the long run, or is this battle-tested team going to be better off despite the losses? Coach and I are going to answer that question coming up in just a second. Right after I tell you about FanDuel, get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel. It's America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers, when you bet $5 and win, you get $150 back in bonus bets. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. It's this great one-stop shop. You get a hunch in the middle of the game and you want to go see some stats or live play-by-play. It's all right there for you on that same page where you place your bets. It's great and easy. Man, y'all, as we look at the ACC regular season champion odds at FanDuel, it's changed. Carolina has fallen from second down to third in the odds. Duke leads the way at -230, then Clemson at +550. Carolina has fallen to +800, and fourth is Pitt at +1300. So if you think Carolina's due for a big turnaround and can go win this thing, man, some great odds for you. Check it out at FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. This episode's also brought to you by Prize Picks. Make your holidays bigger and better with Prize Picks, the best place to get real money action while watching your favorite sports. Right now, you can win up to 1,000 times your money on Prize Picks, and do so with peace of mind, because withdrawals, they're fast, safe, and secure, and they can drop in as fast as 15 minutes. So join now, because this holiday season, Prize Picks is giving away two free picks in December, and they're giving away $30+ million in rewards during Pixmas. We talked about the CFP games upcoming on Saturday, the 2 ACC games. In the Texas Clemson game, 260.5 passing yards for Quinn Ewers, and 216.5 pass yards for Cade Klubnik. You want to take the more or the less on those? I think this is going to be a low-scoring affair. I'm going to go low on Quinn, and I'm going to go more on Cade Klubnik. Go check all that out. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, when you download the app and use code LOCKEDONCollege, you'll get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. Coach, we've alluded to this already earlier in the show, but I do want to have a conversation about scheduling. There is obvious cause for concern. Carolina is 6-5. At some point, losses matter, even if it is against an analytically strong schedule, right? Like all of that is at play in balance here. But even though there's cause for concern, as you said, it's not gloom and doom and apocalyptic and the sky is falling. But I think my question is, does the difficulty of the schedule and what it's taught the Tar Heels and how it's made them battle tested, does that bring a level of comfort of what could be ahead despite the 5 losses already?
I think it's a philosophy issue based on what the head coach is trying to accomplish. Again, go back to my college coach. We played 4 games before Thanksgiving every year. All 4 games were games we knew we were going to win. So you have a little bit of confidence going in. You go home for Thanksgiving. We're undefeated, and then you get into the tougher part of your schedule when you get back. You feel. Flip side is you play tough competition early. Then all of a sudden you're playing teams that are in your league or that obviously not as good. The game is slower. The length is different. The quickness is different. Shots are easier to get. Rebounds are easier to get. I think we alluded to a little bit. I went to the Tennessee Western Carolina game last night. Rebounds in that game were brutal. UT is such a great defensive team, and they are big and physical, and you just don't get rebounds against them. And when you play against those super athletic teams, those super long teams, it does make everything a little bit easier when you get back to teams that are maybe teams that you should beat. So again, it's a total philosophy issue based on your head coach and what they're trying to accomplish.
Interesting. That's such an interesting dynamic. And so clearly with Coach Davis, it's the latter of those two, the version of we want these non-con games to be crazy tough. So as we get into conference play then, especially with the ACC not being like the SEC is just straight up loaded right now. That's not the ACC, right? We have to recognize that. And so in some way, the ACC will be a bit of a, I guess maybe quote unquote letdown. Let me use another music analogy. When I'm learning a piece of music, let's say it's at 75 beats per minute. My goal is to learn it up to 100 beats per minute where it's really fast and I can play it super fast so that when I go back and play it at speed, it feels like I'm just strolling through the park on a lazy Sunday because it's so easy and quick. And that's some of what this Carolina schedule will do. According to Ken Palm right now, Coach, Carolina's non-con strength of schedule is 6th in the nation. The only other conference team that's in that top 6 is Alabama. The rest of them are all lowly ranked mid-major teams that are having to play all these bye games. And yes, there's this weird conversation. In fact, I tweeted about this on Wednesday morning, and Coach, I got roasted for this because basically I was saying, look, almost every team in America would have lost all these games that Carolina has lost. 4 of the 5 losses are to teams that are ranked in the top 8 right now and to Michigan State, who's 20th. They do have a win over Dayton, who's 22nd. And Coach, the pushback from people, and I get this, I hear it, is, yeah, but that should never be acceptable at Carolina. Carolina is a blue blood, and you should expect to win, 2 or 3 of those games. I hear that pushback. But at the same time, Carolina is still in process. They are not top 10 good right now, but they have the talent to be. They could be top 25 good. For me, there's a lot of season left. So what do you agree with that? And if so, what is the narrative that you're telling your team?
I think right now you're telling the team, hey, we have not lived up to our expectations that anybody's had for us, but you can't go back. You can't continue to look back at what happened. We got to press forward. And that's what I'm trying to do with my team, trying to be as positive as possible. Yeah, scheduling's been brutal. And you can spin it in a positive way. Say, hey, guys, I really believe we're a top 5 team in the country. So we're going to go out and play the very best schedule we possibly could to get you guys ready. Obviously, it didn't work out so far, but it's got us ready for what's in front of us. Imagine being Tim Kraft, the coach at Western Carolina. He had to take on the number 1 team in the country last night. And now he plays Milligan on Thursday. You constantly, here we are. It's 11 a.m. on ESPN Plus Thursday morning. And how can he prepare for one or the other? This is what coaching is all about, to be able to coach your guys against the very best and also prepare against, one of the worst teams they're going to play on their schedule. And I can talk about my team that way. But it's all about the process. Again, you've got to figure out how you can go about preparing your guys and mentally and motivationally for every situation that you have out there, whether you're playing in front of 10,000 people or playing in front of 500 people. You've got to have your guys motivated internally to play regardless of whatever situation that they're in.
And it's funny because when you look at other teams' schedules, teams that maybe have a different scheduling philosophy, let's say I was looking back at Florida's schedule. If Carolina had played Florida's schedule, the Tar Heels are 10-0, maybe at worst 9-1 coming into that Jumpman Invitational game. And so it's like there are so many of the teams around America that Carolina, instead of being 6-5 like they are now, had they played a similar cupcakeier schedule, would be 10-0, 9-1, whatever it would be. And so I want to look at it with that perspective. Yes, you got to win games at some point, but there are still 21 more games to be played this season. UCLA, Campbell, and then 19 more ACC games. So, Coach, what is the hope now? Like, give the good people some hope looking forward of what you expect to see against UCLA and then a Campbell and then the ACC schedule.
Yeah, I think the big hope this week is to kind of UCLA's. I think it's a good matchup. I think it's an opportunity for them to get a big win on a big stage and play again in front of the national audience, to be able to get on TV. So that again, this is a big for recruiting. The kids want to know that they're going to be on the big TV on the weekend, and everybody's seeing them play from coast to coast, and all those NBA scouts will be able to see them play too. So I think that's a big positive this week. The Campbell game gets them ready, gets them back after Christmas, gets them ready to be able to, or after finals and everything's over. Now you get a chance to regroup, and then you're thinking about conference play, and there's not a game out there you sit there and say, well, we're expected to lose. Now we're going out and playing games we expect to win. And I know Duke's really good. I know Clemson's really good. But those are games going in. They're sitting there going, hey, these are games we should win. So let's get ourselves together. Let's forget about what's past and move on to what's in front of us. And there's not a game that you're sitting there saying, hey, we can't lose. We can't win that game. We have to be positive going forward.
I know there's a lot of talk about NCAA tournaments off the table. That's silly, folks. Like, yes, if Carolina carries on down the path that they're on and losing a bunch of games, yeah, that's absolutely true. But don't put the cart before the horse here. There is Carolina just needs to keep battling. They've got to keep working. Yes, there's a lot to be fixed. I hear us saying that, but we can't sit here in December 19th and say Carolina's out of the NCAA tournament. That is hogwash. But there's a lot to be fixed. Got to keep tweaking, got to keep plugging, got to keep working. Let's all buckle up, circle up the wagons, and keep pushing through this thing together. All right, Coach, great conversation today. Lots of fun. Thanks so much for being here. Folks, if you haven't checked out Coach's book yet, we talked about it earlier, Carolina Basketball School, History, Stories, and Drills, just put out and published a couple months ago at this point. They're selling, man. Things are going well. I'm so happy for Coach. It's a great Christmas gift. You got just a couple days left to go ahead and get one. Hey, even if you can't get it in time for Christmas, you can print out a picture and be like, hey, look what's coming in a couple days. Make sure to get that for the Carolina fan in your life. If you haven't subscribed to the show on video and audio, make sure you do that. Super easy to subscribe on YouTube. Just hit that bottom corner button there. If you haven't joined Locked On Tar Heels Discord or Insider Program, and it's a great way to go deeper with our show and become part of this community. The links for both are in your show notes. You guys know the drill. It's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. We'll talk again tomorrow to get ready for that UCLA game. But until then, peace.